no outcome. It just, it just happened. There's no justice, so that's kind of what spurred me on to really do something about it, and I want to improve it so that other people don't have to go through the feelings that myself and my family did.
You must think about your dad every day.
I do. My dad and my nan, to give her so much credit as well. She brought my dad up initially as a single parent. She worked God knows how many jobs to get him through, and she was honestly one of the most incredible, hardworking, resilient, but fun people I knew. So between the pair of them, it's kind of no wonder I turned out the way I did. And the sad thing is just that neither of them were there to kind of see this happen. It would have been great to kind of share the achievement of winning the election, doing the maiden speech and all those things with them.
It's time to remind ourselves there's always another winter. Canary Islands sponsors the weather. Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
My name's Tom Harwood, and every weekday we bring you The Briefing at 9 a.m. The stories, opinions, debate and analysis that you need to hear.
You're quite right, Tom, of course.
Was this something that had been considered at all?
Difficult to answer.
Gas-guzzling helicopters circling. Noise is being made here.
Joe Biden walking out.
Thank you very much for joining us. Thank you.
Don't forget The Briefing, 9 a.m. Monday to Friday here on GB News.
Join me, Gloria De Piero, Monday to Thursday at noon for The Briefing. We go to the parts of Parliament that you won't see elsewhere. Plus, there's exclusive interviews with MPs from all parties.
But quite often, they paper over the real truth. Why does a working class lad like you join the Tories?
That's a good question.
Don't miss it, Monday to Thursdays at noon on GB News.
You're watching GB News live across the UK and the world on our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
We are here for you. Don't forget to join our YouTube community by clicking on that subscribe button.
And if you want the GB News app, you can click and catch up on programmes anytime.
We love to hear from you, so email us.
gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Thanks for being part of the GB News family.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. Over a drink, we have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else, I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
Hello and welcome, I'm Nana Akua. For the next few hours, me and my panel we'll be taking on some of the big topics that are hitting the headlines right now. This show is all about opinion. It's mine, it's theirs, and of course, it's yours. We'll be debating, discussing, and at times we will disagree, but no one will be cancelled. So joining you today is comedian Leo Kearse and also Conservative commentator Calvin Robinson. But first, let's get your latest news headlines.
Hello, I'm Karen Roberts. This is your news at 4 o'clock. Health leaders are welcoming a move to suspend GPs' targets in order to focus on the vaccination programme. However, they've been warned the service still remains under significant pressure. NHS England has told doctors that routine health checks for the over 75s and new patients may be deferred to prioritise booster jabs. The aim is to suspend paperwork and to ease the workload, but the British Medical Association says individual practices can decide when they switch to delivering COVID jabs. A further 75 cases of the Omicron variant have been confirmed in England. This brings the total number of confirmed cases to 104 in England and 135 across the whole of the United Kingdom. There's only one confirmed case so far in Wales and none in Northern Ireland. Scotland has reported 30 cases. The parents of a teenager accused of killing 4 students in Michigan have pleaded not guilty to 4 counts of involuntary manslaughter. A judge imposed a combined $1 million bail for James and Jennifer Crumbly hours after police said they had been caught hiding in Detroit. The couple's lawyer has denied they were on the run, but said they had left town for their own safety. Charges were brought against the parents, accusing them of failing to intervene in their son's alleged involvement in the shooting at Oxford High School in Michigan. Their son, Ethan Crumbly, has been charged with murder and weapons charges. The Metropolitan Police say they are considering complaints about alleged Christmas parties at Number 10 last year. Labour backbenchers have written to Scotland Yard asking officers to investigate reports that 2 were held when such gatherings were banned. The Met said that it did not routinely investigate retrospective breaches of the COVID regulations. It would consider the complaint, though. Boris Johnson hasn't denied the events took place, but said no rules were broken. Ireland is set to shut nightclubs and limit household gatherings due to fears about the spread of COVID-19 over Christmas. The tougher regulations will come into force from Tuesday and remain in place until January the 9th. The new measures include a maximum 50% capacity at entertainment, community and sporting events, which the hospitality industry has described as a hammer blow. Meanwhile, visits to private homes should be limited to 4 households, although Deputy Prime Minister Leo Varadkar said this won't be strictly enforced.
I want to be very clear that this is advice, it is guidance, it is not statutory. There will be no Gardaí calling to people's homes to see how many are inside, and the government will not be telling you what you can or cannot do in your own home.
Nearly 300 military personnel are being drafted in to assist thousands of homes that are still without power 8 days after Storm Arwen hit the UK. As of early Friday evening, just over 9,000 homes were still cut off. Areas in Scotland and the northeast of England are the worst affected, with energy suppliers continuing efforts to restore power to the properties. 1 person has died and 41 have been injured after a volcano in Indonesia erupted, local authorities have confirmed. Dramatic footage shows the Semeru volcano on Java Island blanketing the area with clouds of smoke and ash, forcing residents to flee. Eileen Ash, the oldest ever Test cricketer, has died at the age of 110. The right-arm bowler made 7 appearances for England before and after the Second World War and retired in 1949. As well as cricket, she was seconded to MI6 during the war and played golf until she was 98 years old. That's your news update. I'll be back in half an hour's time with the latest headlines. Now let's return to Nana Akua.
OK, I wasn't planning to go there for a while because we're all getting worn down with this whole male-female gender business. But I'm going to give it one more crack and have one more go at trying to make sense of this. So the latest instalment of Gender Madness comes in the form of the removal of an evidence-based display which clarifies the science behind the X and Y chromosomes. Now, these chromosomes will determine your gender physiology. Now, in a nutshell, the Science Museum in London has apparently been forced to ditch an exhibit about sex. And before you get excited, now, the exhibit showed how chromosomes and hormones determine which sex we are. So whether you are scientifically male or scientifically female. And because they are a science museum, they deal with facts. Now, even if you're both so intersex, your physiology will still only comprise of these two chromosomes. So let me give you a definition of science according to the Science Council, so that we can be really clear of the business that this museum dabbles in. Science is the pursuit and application of knowledge and understanding of the natural and social world following a systematic methodology based on evidence. Did you hear that? Evidence. It's not based on whether the information you receive will make you or anyone feel bad. It is objective. It does not deal with made-up narratives, and it certainly doesn't take offence if the information that transpires as a result of investigation might be upsetting to those that receive it. I repeat, science is based on facts. Unfortunately, a liberal-minded individual, and I believe it was only one, went to the exhibit and complained, saying there was no mention of transgenderism. So as a result, the Science Museum were forced to remove the exhibition. Now, I consider myself to be very, very tolerant and understanding. And if someone wants to identify themselves as male or female, irrespective of their biological sex, I will attempt to remember all 76 and counting gender pronouns and politely oblige with the pronoun they would like me to use. I consider my manners to be exemplary and see no reason why I wouldn't make this small adjustment in my language, even though I believe a lot of it is a load of old nonsense. I don't want to deliberately offend anyone, but I'm afraid the moment you ask me to enter into the lie that because you have surgically changed your anatomy from male to female, that you are biologically, according to science, female, or vice versa, or that there is now a new transgender chromosome not yet identified by science, I'm afraid you lose my cooperation. I mean, I could go around telling people I am a Doberman, which, if I were a dog, that would be my preference. But science would determine otherwise. Can we please stick to just the science? So before we get stuck into the debate, here's what else is coming up today. My difficult conversation this week is focused on drink spiking. So with almost 200 incidents reported to police forces across the UK throughout September and October, I'll meet the woman who's created an easy-to-use drug detection strip for people to take out with them. She'll be joined by her daughter, who has first-hand experience of being spiked. We'll hear the latest from the royal household with friend of the show, royal commentator Richard Fitzwilliams. And on the agenda today, yes, you guessed it, Meghan Markle. I was going to do the monologue on that, but I thought I'll wait till tomorrow. Something else will probably transpire. Then the great British debate this hour. Business leaders have warned that thousands of oil and gas jobs could be at risk in the UK after Shell pulled out of the Cambo oil field development. That's Aberdeen's Chamber of Commerce. They said a premature end to domestic production could see some areas suffer the fate of mining communities in the 1980s. So I'm asking, should we sacrifice jobs to reach net zero? Tell me what you think on everything we discuss. Email gbviews@gbnews.uk, or why not send me that tweet at gbnews. Right, let's do this. Let's get started. Welcome to my panel, Conservative commentator Calvin Robinson and also comedian Leo Kirst. Welcome.
Hello.
Hello.
How you doing?
You look very festive.
Thank you. So did you before you got changed. You had a lovely sparkly gold dress
I know,
on.
I should have kept it on now.
You look fantastic.
But unfortunately, because it's so warm in here, unfortunately, it would have ended up with the shoulder sweat, and that's really unpleasant.
Too much information.
You wouldn't have wanted to see that. Right. So welcome. Nice to see you both.
Thanks.
Good. Right. So I'm going to start with you, Calvin. So what do you make of this? There's this whole... The Science Museum have now been told to take down something that shows X and Y chromosomes, which scientifically is fact, right?
Well, I loved your monologue where you said it's the pursuit of knowledge through evidence, and that's exactly what science should be. This idea that they've been forced, first of all, have they been forced, or have they chosen to remove this based on a complaint? And if they have, why, based on one complaint, have they removed an entire category of science from their museum? That, to me, shows weakness and cowardice. They should say, this is fact, here is the evidence, review it, challenge it if you don't agree with it, but we're not going to take it down just because you find it offensive. What's that about? I could say I find the car part of the museum offensive. Are they going to suddenly remove all of the automobile industry? It's illogical. It doesn't make any sense. This whole idea that feelings replace facts is nonsensical. We need to get past that point and return to good old-fashioned logic.
Well, I suspect they may have seen what happened to Kathleen Stott and thought twice about it.
Well, yeah, this is why, I agree with Calvin, but and I agree with you, but, I feel some sympathy for the Science Museum because they're put in an impossible position. They don't want, blue-haired, angry wokeists coming down and, chaining themselves to the aeroplanes and steam engines and things. But it's ridiculous. It's a science museum, not an ideology museum. So it follows the science, objective, provable, evidence-based fact. And it's looking at sex and not gender. Gender's a social construct. Sex is a biological reality. So people can change their gender, but they can't change their biological sex. And that shouldn't be a controversial thing to say.
This is, though. What is gender? What is it?
Well, gender's it's based. It's got its roots in biological sex, obviously, but it's less, clear cut.
So you're saying that gender is sort of fluid. Because there's all this gender fluidity, but you might say that you're a different gender, but your physiology will remain exactly the same.
So you can be biologically...
You can say whatever you like.
So you can be biologically female and identify as a man, present as a man, but you'll still have ovaries. So your biological sex doesn't just vanish like that when you change your gender.
So you can't change your gender, but you're saying you can change your...
No, you can.
You can change your gender, but not your sex.
Yeah.
So what is gender?
So gender is a sort of made-up thing based on reality.
Well, then you said reality, though, based on reality.
Yeah, it's obviously based on reality. Most people's gender aligns with their biological sex. But then for some people it doesn't. And for some people that's because of mental illness or body dysmorphia or whatever. Yeah. But for some people it is because they're best placed transitioning to the other gender and living.
And how do we find that? How do we find out if actually it's a mental illness and these people need support?
Well,
or they need some physical alterations to their body.
This is why the government's recent proposals to ban conversion therapy are worrying, because they'll stop any sort of talking therapy around it, and instead the sort of gender ideologues who say that anybody who thinks that if you're a woman and you're attracted to other women, it's like, oh, you must be a man, and
right, so sexuality comes into
funnel them into this industry that's exploding, this gender transition industry. So in America, it's gone from one gender clinic to over 50 gender clinics.
So it's a money-making business.
Space of time. And making a lot of money.
A lot of people who are regretting the transition now, aren't we? But I still don't get the crux of it. What is gender? Because people saying, I want to live as a man. What does that mean? Does that mean male stereotypes of...
Yeah.
Right, OK. So what's to stop a woman living that life without changing the physicality?
Some people do live that life without changing their physicality.
I still cannot comprehend what...
to me, it's really simple. And maybe I'm just a simple person, but to me, there are two genders. Yes, you can have both chromosomes, you could be intersex, but that's still made out of the two genders that we know of. And if you feel that you're something else, then to me, that's fair enough. If you want me to call you whatever name it is or whatever you say I should call you. But for me, I'm not going to follow your delusion that you are a female when you are actually a man. That's how I feel.
I'm absolutely fine with trans, as long as they put the effort in. I've got no time for the ones that don't even shave. If you're just walking around with a beard and calling yourself a woman, oh come on, Nobody's buying that. So, I mean, as long as you're putting the effort in, I'm absolutely fine to call you whatever you want. But the one thing I don't want to do is do any homework. All this gender stuff is so complicated.
Oh, it's so complicated.
I've already got enough stuff going on. I've got all these like bills to pay and stuff. I don't have time to like read up on 348 different genders.
Where do you think it's coming from?
So you two
then?
are very polite in that you'll say you'll address people with whatever pronouns they want and call them a man if they want to say that they're a man, etc. That's very kind of you, very compassionate. But it doesn't just affect that person, does it? It affects everyone else. So, for example, if a man identifies as a woman, and so even if they put the effort in, they're still not a woman, but they're allowed in female-only spaces. They're allowed to go. If they
well, no, I wouldn't go that far.
They could end up in a female-only prison.
No,
and then
I wouldn't have that in prison.
Female-only sports.
No.
We're seeing sports women getting really physically damaged because men are physically superior to women.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's inappropriate.
Yeah, I mean, obviously in sports, there's an argument to be made for limiting, especially in contact sports and combat sports.
And strength-based sports as well, like Laurel Hubbard, who went in for the... I mean, she didn't actually win, which was quite interesting. But the point is that she was able to enter it. Yeah. And this is unfair to the women who are actually there, who are women.
But I think when it comes to bathrooms, I mean, this is why there needs to be free debate around this. And the debate is so often shut down because any questions are seen as criticism and are seen as an attack on transgender people. And it's not an attack. It's just there are some instances of men identifying as women and getting access to, women's prisons, going into women's prisons.
Again, that's ridiculous. Who on earth would think that would be a good idea for a man who still has all the tackles there to then say, I'm a woman, I'm going to enter into women-only prison?
But some genuine transgender people do still have the tackle.
Yeah, but that's fair enough. But then you can't say that you want to enter into a female prison because of that.
No, I think
that has to be the reality.
It's a difficult.
Where do you draw the line, Leo? Where is the line drawn? Because Nana's line makes sense to me. Physicality makes a bit of sense. I don't agree with it, but it makes sense.
I can tell you exactly where I draw the line. If they're hot, they're a woman. There's a hotness rule.
No.
Not all women are hot.
Well, that's subjective, isn't it? It depends. That's subjective.
So in fact, those women don't get to be women.
No, hold on. That's subjective. There's somebody, what you think is gorgeous, somebody else might think differently. Anyway, we move on because the Science Museum says that the review would take into account, because they're going to review this now, new scientific and curatorial research and visitor feedback. It added that the gallery is updated on a rolling basis where resources allow to reflect areas where there has been fresh research or a shift in scientific consensus. I wonder what that shift in scientific consensus is. Right, so after the break, the Great British Debate this hour. Business leaders have warned that thousands of oil and gas jobs could be at risk in the UK after Shell pulled out of the Cambo oil field development. Aberdeen's Chamber of Commerce said that it could see some areas suffer the fate of mining communities in the 1980s. So I'm asking, should we sacrifice jobs to reach net zero? Send me an email now, gbnews@gbnews.uk, and tell me what you think. You can also tweet at GBNews. And we're currently running a poll right now asking that very question, so cast your vote. But first, it's the weather.
It's time to remind ourselves there's always another winter. Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
It's looking cold, windy and showery with some heavy showers in places and snow over northern hills. Let's take a look at the details. There'll be plenty of showers rattling into southwest England this afternoon. Some will be heavy with a risk of hail. Feeling cold with blustery northwesterly winds. Far fewer showers for central, southern and southeast England with plenty of sunshine to be had. Still cold though, especially due to the wind. We're back into showery conditions in Wales with the air cold enough for a bit of snow over the mountains. Winds will be strongest around the coasts. Frequent showers will be driven into northwest England on a strong and cold northwesterly wind. Some of the showers will contain hail. Temperatures will reach just 5 or 6 Celsius at best. For northeast England, showers may well merge into more general rain and hill snow later this afternoon. Most of the snow will be above 300 metres, affecting higher Transpennine routes and, again, feeling cold. Pretty wet with rain and hill snow over southeast Scotland, but further west it should be drier with some bright or sunny spells. Temperatures between 3 and 5 Celsius. And a windy and cold afternoon across Northern Ireland with lots of showers piling in. Again, some will be heavy with the risks of hail in places. Temperatures topping out at 6 Celsius. Remaining showery in many areas this evening with some more persistent rain and hill snow for northern and eastern England, and that's how the weather is shaping up for the rest of the day.
Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
You're watching GB News live across the UK and the world on our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
We are here for you. Don't forget to join our YouTube community by clicking on that subscribe button.
And if you want the GB News app, you can click and catch up on programmes anytime.
We love to hear from you, so email us.
gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Thanks for being part of the GB News family.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else. I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
So it's time for the great British debate this hour. Should we sacrifice jobs to reach net zero? Thousands of oil and gas jobs in the North Sea could be at risk after Shell pulled out of an oil field development in Scotland. It faced criticism from environmental groups for the Cambo project and eventually said that the economic case for it was not strong enough. Aberdeen's Chamber of Commerce has warned that stopping domestic oil production could see areas suffer similar unemployment to the mining towns in the 1980s. So I'm joined by Benny Pizer. He's director of Net Zero Watch. Benny, welcome. Benny,
hi.
I want to start by asking you whether this sacrifice, as what it appears to be, to cut carbon to reach this net zero is actually worth it.
Well, that is a good question. I think you should ask voters if they will actually vote for basically damaging the economy, making energy much more expensive, making tens of thousands of people unemployed, and making life miserable for lots of people. I mean, there will be millions of families struggling to pay their bills this winter. If we give up on domestic oil and gas, it will be much worse, and not just for the workers currently working in those industries, but every business will be affected, and they will also cut jobs if they can't afford to live in and work in a competitive society, and that is the threat we face.
Well, I mean, I've looked on your website and you talk of sort of green energy poverty. Is that what you mean by it, or is there another definition?
No, obviously, renewable energy is much more expensive than conventional energy, at least for the time being. And this idea to replace all conventional energy with renewables would basically cause a huge much worse energy crisis than we face now. And it would destroy almost all energy-intensive industries in the country, which would have to move abroad.
Well,
many of these companies have already moved abroad.
Are renewables really the way forward as well? So replacing what we have currently with renewable energy, is that the direction of travel that we should ultimately be heading in?
Well, that is what the government currently wants to do, but it's a cul-de-sac. It's a dead end. It's not going to work. It's too expensive. It's too unreliable. The only way really to transition to a cleaner, a greener energy system in the UK is to move from natural gas, which we will need for decades to come, to nuclear eventually. But renewables are dead end, they are too expensive and too unreliable.
See, now they don't pitch it like that at all. They're pitching it that we could save the planet, although I suspect the planet will survive without us. But they're pitching that this will save us, I presume, as a species, and we'll be able to live longer on the planet. And the way that we're going forward is actually accelerating the decline in the planet and our environment.
Yeah, I mean, this is how it's being sold. It's, of course, complete lunatic, because you see, we face these energy crises. The EU is on the verge of declaring, classifying natural gas and nuclear as green energy, because they can see that renewables are just too unreliable and too costly. So if you really want to decarbonize, that is the worst thing you want to do, is to go down that route, because it's not going to work. So if you really want to have a cleaner and greener world, you have to be more pragmatic, and you will accept that natural gas will remain part of the system for decades to come, and eventually will move to nuclear energy. And that is low carbon. So,
what about all these green jobs that they're talking about, though? Because if you say we're going to be poorer and there'll be poverty and things like that, but they're saying that there's all these new jobs and green jobs,
yes,
where there'll be money in those jobs, surely.
Yeah, the only problem is they won't be in the UK. I mean, all these solar panels and wind turbines and so on, they're mainly built in Asia, where work is cheap and energy is cheap. No one's going to build any solar panels in the UK. It's far too expensive. So this idea of green jobs is another myth. Most of these jobs will be abroad.
Well, listen, Benny, thank you so much.
We'll pay for them.
Thank you for your thoughts. Thank you. That's Benny Pizer. He's the director of Net Zero Watch. Right, let's speak to John Grant, a senior lecturer in sustainable construction and climate change at Sheffield Hallam University. Well, are you backing Shell pulling out of this development?
Well, yes, because oil and gas has to be left in the ground. That's our only hope for the mid-term to long-term future. And, this idea that renewables are more expensive is a narrative that is fundamentally flawed. It is just not true. The cheapest way of producing electricity in the UK on a good site is using a wind turbine. Yes, we need to develop our energy storage, and that it has developed over recent years. We've seen a dropping of anything between 50 and 90% in the cost of storing energy. And, we really have a serious chance of achieving that zero carbon with renewables, with this energy storage. And this idea that there aren't jobs out there is just ridiculous, especially in places like Scotland. Quite recently, a Scottish company managed to put a tidal stream technology, which is a way of pulling electricity out of the movement of tides and underwater sort of movements of water. And that produced more power in 1 year than all the other technologies that were based offshore had done in 12 years. So this technology is leaping forwards. And Scotland, the place where we're talking about here, we could pivot the workers that are sadly going to have to lose their jobs. And this is not a surprise, but in favour. This is not like the coal industry, where, in the 80s, I remember that. I live in Yorkshire, so I remember what was done to the coal miners in that. But what we're looking at here are technologies, offshore wind turbines, floating wind turbines, tidal stream, where these workers who are skilled in offshore steel engineering, oil and gas currently, but they could pivot to producing renewable energy. And that's, potentially 2 million jobs just there. And then we've got 29 million houses that need to be retrofitted. So we don't need as much energy And that shrinking amount of energy that is required by people will offset in the short term the increase in cost. Yes.
But John, Benny did point out, though, that a lot of those jobs that you speak of will probably be abroad, and the Chamber of Commerce is also concerned, and they're quite a big body, an organisation to be concerned about this. They're talking about mass job losses.
Yeah, and you know, these are supposed to be business people. This has not just appeared since COP26 or even COP25 or even Paris. We have been talking about this. In fact, the oil and gas industry established that the business model of oil and gas was damaging to human health and the planet in the late 80s. And so what, are you telling me that these business-minded individuals didn't see that these are stranded assets and we should be moving to a different industrial base? And
John, I suspect they did. I suspect they did, but what Benny was saying was that...
they delayed and they confused and they lied about how much renewables were going to cost. It was been a concerted effort, millions of pounds and hundreds of people just lying to the people that they don't realise that, yes, we can build this technology here in the UK. This idea that you know, oh, it has to go abroad, it kind of depends on our government support. And, you know, you may like or hate Brexit, but we could do that here.
Yeah, OK. Well, we could do that here, but as Benny pointed out, we probably might not do that here. And the worry as well, his concern was that the energy that we're moving to is actually the wrong thing to move to, and that we should actually be moving to things like nuclear and other forms of energy, which would be far better for us. What would you say to that argument?
Yeah, they're hugely expensive. Those are hugely expensive. Nuclear is a massively expensive technology. It is arguably lower carbon, but you still have a fuel, and that fuel isn't equally dispersed across the planet like renewables are more equally dispersed. Here in the UK, we have a great deal of wind. In other countries, there are other renewables. But when it comes to uranium and nuclear, they are focused in certain parts of the world, and pulling that out of the ground is not trivial, and neither is building and running a nuclear power plant, you know. Whereas, you know, somebody hacks a wind farm, you lose power. Somebody hacks a nuclear power plant, and things can get very serious, as well as extreme weather events that are coming along that can really seriously hammer this.
Understood, John. Although I'm interested that you do point out that even you point out the expense when we talk about nuclear, but you admit that it is possibly better for the environment. John, thank you so much for joining us. That's John Grant. He's a senior lecturer in sustainable construction and climate change at Sheffield Hallam University. Well, we'll be speaking to my panel and find out what they think, and we'll hear your thoughts too. Still to come, though, we'll continue our Great British Debate. I'm asking, should we sacrifice jobs to reach net zero? Get in touch with us now at GB News. But first, let's get your latest headlines.
Hello, I'm Karen Roberts. Here are the latest headlines. Health leaders are welcoming a move to suspend GPs' targets in order to focus on the vaccination programme. However, they've been warned the service still remains under significant pressure. NHS England has told doctors that routine health checks for the over 75s and new patients may be deferred to prioritise booster jabs. A further 75 cases of the Omicron variant have been confirmed in England. This brings the total number of confirmed cases to 104 in England and 135 across the whole of the United Kingdom. There's only one confirmed case so far in Wales and none in Northern Ireland. Scotland has reported 30 cases. The parents of a teenager accused of killing 4 students in Michoacan have pleaded not guilty to 4 counts of involuntary manslaughter. A judge imposed a combined $1 million bail for James and Jennifer Crumbly, hours after police said they had been caught hiding in Detroit. The couple's lawyer has denied they were on the run, but said they had left town for their own safety. The Metropolitan Police say they are considering complaints about alleged Christmas parties at Number 10 last year. Labour backbenchers have written to Scotland Yard asking officers to investigate reports that 2 were held when such gatherings were banned. The Met said that it did not routinely investigate retrospective breaches of the COVID regulations, but it would consider the complaint. Nearly 300 military personnel are being drafted in to assist thousands of homes that are still without power, 8 days after Storm Arwen hit the UK. As of early Friday evening, just over 9,000 homes were still cut off. Freezing temperatures are expected in parts of the north of England and Scotland, as well as sleet and rain over the next 24 hours. I'll be back at the top of the hour with a full news update.
You're watching GB News live across the UK and the world on our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
We are here for you. Don't forget to join our YouTube community by clicking on that subscribe button.
And if you want the GB News app, you can click and catch up on programmes anytime.
We love to hear from you, so email us.
gbviews@gbnews.uk. Thanks for being part of the GB News family.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of 2 wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilized conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else. I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
Welcome back to the Great British Debate. This hour, I'm asking, should we sacrifice jobs to reach net zero? Now, there's warnings that thousands of oil and gas jobs in the North Sea could be at risk after Shell pulled out of a new oil field development because the economic case, as they said it, was not strong enough. So let's get my panel's thoughts. Leo, you're a Scotsman. What do you make of us stepping away from the North Sea?
I think it's ridiculous. I mean, this move to green jobs just hasn't been borne out in the figures. The SNP promised 130,000 green jobs. There's only 21,400 so far, and that number is actually dropping. So we're not seeing, a big, like Benny said, all the manufacturing is being offshored to either Europe or in the Far East, where labour is much cheaper. So, yeah, I mean, the jobs thing is bunk. Also, we need oil. Like, the price of oil is rocketing up at the moment because we're not getting enough out of the sea. And Patrick Harvey, the co-leader of the Scottish Greens, who prop up the SNP and the Scottish devolved government, he actually says we should import oil from Russia instead of getting it from the North Sea. Like, I don't know how they can explain that somehow bringing oil in tankers or in pipelines from Russia is more environmentally friendly than getting it from right on our doorstep, where it's going to generate wealth for the country, it's going to generate jobs for Scotland, and we're talking huge huge amounts of oil. So the Campbell oil field has hundreds of millions of barrels of oil, each priced at the moment at around $70 or $80 a barrel. So I mean that's a huge windfall for the country.
What about the case for oil and the emissions and clean air and the health of as John was talking about the health of the nation and the health of the world?
If John's worried about clean air, he should wash his beard. I mean, this is ridiculous.
You didn't mean that, John.
I did mean that. Like,
no, John.
Why do they all look like that? Why do they all look like they sleep in a hedge? Like, I'm not going to take any advice from somebody with...
No, but it can't all be about how someone looks. You've got to listen to what he said, and what he was saying was that he was concerned about the air quality.
Was he worried about the CO2 impact of personal grooming?
Well, these are valid concerns that he raised.
We're actually, if you look at the historical levels of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, we're at dangerously low levels.
Where did you see that?
So Precambrian levels. This is scientific fact.
From where?
From I can't, why, do you want me to actually reference it with a little footnote?
Well, that would be useful.
This is a fact. You can check it afterwards. But so Precambrian levels we had 8,000 parts per million of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, and over time it's been coming down because shellfish and plants sequester the carbon. The White Cliffs of Dover, that's all calcium carbon. That's carbon that's been stored. And over time, it's come down. At the moment, it's actually kind of dangerously low. Scientists predict that within 2 million years, we could have plant death because carbon dioxide levels.
So we need more carbon, is what you're saying.
So yeah, we need more carbon. And the climate cult science, the climate doomsday cult always say, carbon dioxide is only going to have negative impacts, but it doesn't. It's basically food for plants. So we're going to get the greenification of arid areas.
Well, let's find out what Calvin thinks.
I think we need to stop importing oil, gas, and energy. We need to make sure it's all homegrown. We've got, as you said, we've got plenty of barrels that we can surface from our own country. We don't need to be paying corrupt governments for access to things that we need. So let's go back to opening up our own programs. But Shell said they're not going to do this because it's not economically viable. They haven't said because of the whole Greenpeace thing. So Greenpeace is suing the government to say you can't do this, and it's not related to that actually. But I think Benny was right in that whenever we have these green groups put pressure on companies and on the government, actually the people who lose out are the consumers. Energy prices rocket. We're already doing enough in this country. Since 1960, we've more than halved our CO2 emissions if people care about this stuff. I don't actually think it is relevant because I think, if you want to see global CO2 emissions go down, you have to lobby China. Otherwise, there's no point. Anything we do here is infinitesimal compared to them.
Well, in your sort of analogy, CO2, we actually need the carbon anyway.
Yeah, I don't think it's a pressing issue. Yeah, we'll have more extreme weather events, but we can deal with extreme weather events.
But the science seems to say, I mean, as far as I've heard, the science continues to say that we need to bring down our carbon emissions. We've got this net zero target, 1.5 degree of warming. Otherwise, we're all going to go off to hell in a handcart or whatever they're saying. I mean, it does feel a little bit cultish, forcing you to buy the electric car.
The end of the world is nigh, and unless you give me all this money to pursue my research, and unless you buy all these products, then we're all going to die.
Well, there might be some. I mean, look, I struggle to believe a lot of it simply because of the commercialisation of it all. It's almost like Christmas. They talk about Christmas. They want you to believe this wonderful story. Yeah. Then suddenly there's this, buy this, do that. You need this. You have to have that. And by the time you know, your wallet is empty and you've forgotten the reason why you're doing it in the first place, which is where I think we're going with this.
So the net zero target of 2050 is very much based on commercial value, isn't it? People are going to make a lot of money from us having to rush over to a different way of life, a different system. As I said, consumers and average folk like us are going to miss out. But people at the top who are investing in all of this new forms of energy, which are less effective than traditional forms of energy, are going to make a lot of money from us.
Well, interestingly enough, even John pointed out that nuclear energy was more efficient than the energy he was proposing, which was wind power. Yeah. And he thought that was quite efficient. But I thought a lot of birds died. It's not very nice for the animals around there. And also a lot of them end up in the landfill. They do. The propellers and things end up in the landfill. And you can only have those propellers. I think it lasts for about 10 years. You've got to put another one up there. I mean, that doesn't sound great.
Nuclear is actually very clean, it's very effective, and it's very safe as well. People think that, we're pumping, it's like The Simpsons, we're pumping all this dangerous radioactivity into the atmosphere. The amount of radiation you absorb each year from nuclear power is equivalent to eating one banana.
Is that right?
Yeah.
You say that. Where do you get that from? I still don't believe it. Where do you get your research from? There's a lot of stuff coming from you. Right, let's take a look at what you've been telling us, because I've been asking you, should we sacrifice jobs to reach net zero?
I'm in the renewable industry, so for me, it's quite important, I think, that we go that way around, really. So, but acting jobs, I think that's wrong. Maybe just transfer skills over across, because if we're going on to renewables and stuff, we're going to need more people, so that's what I feel about it.
Well, you have to deal with that. I mean, that's a separate problem that you have to address. You have to make sure that everybody is taken care of and that we develop new sectors of the economy that are friendly to the climate, and that everybody, has opportunities to retrain and find new opportunities in a sector of the economy that works for a healthy planet.
You look back at the history of the coal mines, and it doesn't happen straight away, but the economies of those communities have gone forward, and they've looked in other directions and have continued to, prosper in some ways, but in other areas, haven't they?
In some areas, but not so many. I mean, I went to university up north in Sunderland, and all they've got, they appeared to have, there was the Nissan factory, and that was pretty much, there wasn't much else. I mean, that's the worry as well. You end up with this sort of stronghold on the community there. If it's just one industry everyone's relying on.
I just spent a month up in Horden. Absolutely nothing happens there. It's dead. There's no industry because the coal mines were closed, and the whole community relied upon it. In fact, the town was built because of it, and there's many towns like that around the northeast that have been deserted. So that's not correct at all.
Yeah, but the green energy idea, they'll have the green energy somewhere in Scotland, and then there'll be lots of jobs. It'll be like the mining again, but green.
Well, where are these jobs? I mean, the SNP promised 130,000 green jobs. They haven't materialised. There's just over 20,000 jobs.
What was their timescale?
Their timescale was, I'm not sure what the timescale was, Nana.
I was going to ask for the reference when you do say. you saw that trap, you saw the trap door and you thought, I'm not going into that one.
It's like being on Newsnight.
Well, yes, maybe. Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? I'm not convinced by the whole green thing. I mean, I want to do the right thing because I know I sift the right things in my bins, so you've got my... I don't sift through the bins, but I put the right things in the right bins, and then I hear that a lot of it ends up in the same thing. You've left the milk, there's a little bit of milk in that carton, we can't use this, we can't use that. I've just wasted my time. It all goes to the same place.
1.7 million tonnes of plastic waste is shipped from Scotland to third world countries. So basically the Scottish government pays despotic regimes, kleptocratic rulers to take this stuff, and they say, oh, we're going to recycle it. It's not recycled, it's dumped and it's burnt. Yeah. It's the worst. It's the worst thing.
It's not good. But let's see what you've been saying on email and Twitter. OK, so Leon says, net zero will not only sacrifice jobs, but also sacrifice lives as people are unable to afford to heat their homes or decide or have to decide between food and warmth for their families. Sandy says, if Cambo doesn't go ahead, then we truly are the craziest country in the world. Why pay other countries to import? For sure. Elliot says, definitely not. Net zero, as things stand, is a pipe dream that relies on the future development of tech we don't even have yet. Marcus says, only a fool would think it's either or. Why not focus on job creation within renewable energies? Polly says this, it's not about sacrificing your job, it's about changing your vote to save the planet. Do you know what? I hear you, but you do realise, Polly, that the planet will still be here. It's us who won't be able to live off it. We've also had a poll up on Twitter asking the very question, should we sacrifice jobs to reach net zero? And currently 92% of you say no, we shouldn't. No, I agree with you. In a statement, though, Shell says this, we believe that the North Sea and Shell in it have a critical role to play in the UK's energy mix, supporting the jobs and skills to enable a smooth transition to Britain's low-carbon future. Right, so still to come after the break, it's time for our weekly dose of royal news. I'll be joined by friend of the show, royal commentator Richard Fitzwilliams. But first, it's the weather.
It's time to remind ourselves there's always another winter. Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
It's looking cold, windy and showery with some heavy showers in places and snow over northern hills. Let's take a look at the details. There'll be plenty of showers rattling into southwest England this afternoon. Some will be heavy with a risk of hail. Feeling cold with blustery northwesterly winds. Far fewer showers for central, southern and southeast England with plenty of sunshine to be had. Still cold though, especially due to the wind. We're back into showery conditions in Wales with the air cold enough for a bit of snow over the mountains. Winds will be strongest around the coasts. Frequent showers will be driven into northwest England on a strong and cold northwesterly wind. Some of the showers will contain hail. Temperatures will reach just 5 or 6 Celsius at best. For northeast England, showers may well merge into more general rain and hill snow later this afternoon. Most of the snow will be above 300 metres, affecting higher Transpennine routes and, again, feeling cold. Pretty wet with rain and hill snow over southeast Scotland, but further west it should be drier with some bright or sunny spells. Temperatures between 3 and 5 Celsius. And a windy and cold afternoon across Northern Ireland with lots of showers piling in. Again, some will be heavy with the risks of hail in places. Temperatures topping out at 6 Celsius. Remaining showery in many areas this evening with some more persistent rain and hill snow for northern and eastern England, and that's how the weather is shaping up for the rest of the
Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
You're watching GB News live across the UK and the world on our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
We are here for you. Don't forget to join our YouTube community by clicking on that subscribe button.
And if you want the GB News app, you can click and catch up on programmes anytime.
We love to hear from you, so email us.
gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Thanks for being part of the GB News family.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else. I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
Good afternoon. Right, there is always something going on in the royal household, and this week has been no different. So each Saturday we give you a little rundown. Well, who better to delve into that about the royals than royal commentator Richard Fitzwilliams, who joins me in the studio. Right, Richard, let's start with Meghan Markle.
And it's been a very good week for her because Mr. Justice Warby's verdict in her favour in a case against Associated Newspapers, which published 585 words of the 1,250-word letter she wrote to her father. This is in August 2019. The Court of Appeal have upheld the High Court judgment in her favour, and she believes that she's made not only a very, very significant judgment, which is what this is, a victory, but also done something that will, she hopes, start to shackle the tabloid press. She sees it as a victory. She sees herself as a victim.
In what way is she going to shackle the press with winning that?
Well, there's no question that this is a very important judgment. And already there are noises out of Number 10 and elsewhere that it might be that the law needs to be looked at. Because although in the face of it, this is a perfectly clear decision, a private letter should not be reproduced, and it was judged not in the legitimate interest of the public to see it. There's a very interesting aspect to this judgment. Now, this is not that Meghan had to apologise for attempting to pretend that she didn't cooperate with that terrible biography, Finding Freedom, and it's not the case that this highly charged business of whether or not when she wrote the letter, she thought it might be leaked. That's not the point. What is interesting is in the judgment was the issue of proportionality, that Thomas Markle released the letter, apparently, to the Mail on Sunday because he was angered by the People magazine, friends of Meghan's, and they quoted from this letter. Now, proportionate aspects of this, apparently it has been interpreted that the judgment means, if you read what the judges said, that had a certain number of words been used, fewer than 585 or 80, they didn't say how many, she might have lost the case.
Right.
It might have gone to trial. That's the royal might know.
So you're saying because they published almost, it sounds like at least half the letter, that's why, and yet they shouldn't have published so much, they should have published less. But then her dad sold the letter. I mean, it wasn't, you know, she was sent the letter. She obviously holds the copyright to the letter. But so does he, surely, as well. If you've given it to somebody or sent it to somebody, then they share that copyright with you. Is that not right?
Apparently, it was judged not to be in the legitimate public interest to have been published, but with the codicil that I've just mentioned, that a certain amount of it conceivably could have been because Thomas Markle was angered by what appeared in People, which Meghan denies being behind, but she was behind Finding Freedom. I leave you to judge whether she might have been behind friends of hers in People magazine.
Goodness, a cat with 9 lives there. She lands on her feet once again. Now let's talk about Donald Trump and his comments on Meghan and Harry. Here's what the former US president said about the couple in his exclusive interview with GBNews this week.
I think Harry has been used horribly. I think someday he will regret it. You know, a lot of people are saying I'm very good at the prediction business. I think someday he will regret it. He probably does already. I think she's very disrespectful to the royal family, but maybe most importantly to the Queen. And I just, from day one, I never got it. I never got it. I see her, I listen to her. She's trying to do things that I think are inappropriate, very inappropriate. But I think Harry's been used and been used terribly. It's ruined his relationship with his family.
Completely.
And it's really, really, I think it hurts the Queen.
That's what Trump said. Exclusive here on GB News. What do you think?
Well, I'd firstly say that Meghan Markle and Donald Trump, chalk and cheese, no question about it. She called him divisive and misogynistic. Few would argue with that, by the way. That was in 2016 before the wedding. I would suggest that the Oprah interview and...
Exactly. That's divisive, isn't it?
That was, in my opinion, desperately destructive. But one of the interesting aspects that Donald Trump was saying, he thought it was inappropriate that she used her royal title when campaigning.
Yes,
now, I'm interested, if she wants to go into politics, how that will go down with the American people, how the voters would regard this. Remember, she's still got the RH, but she can't use it. But she signs herself Meghan, Duchess of Sussex. Now, she's very articulate. She campaigns, in my opinion, about extremely important issues, such as paid parental leave, for example, which I believe is the right thing to do. And also, I mean, with diversity, gender equality. There's no doubt she'd be a very forceful campaigner for the Democratic Party. How will the voters see her? And also, will they think back, perhaps Oprah could come back to haunt her?
Because I think it's already haunting her as well. I mean, it's surely, you can't, I mean, all the inaccuracies, it was just, I mean, it was just awful. It felt to me quite a sycophantic interview with Oprah, literally lapping at everything that Meghan said. I used to love Oprah until then.
Oh, you're absolutely right. Not one single thing that Harry or Meghan said was challenged by Oprah. But some of those answers, the 2 weddings, the issue of the titles, the issue of whether they wanted paid employment, and they pretended they were cut off, but in fact they always wished the Spotify and Netflix type deals because they wanted to be financially independent. The whole series of things that will, I think, come back to be discussed, because the American people did like it to begin with. But the other issue is this, of course: the royal family will be very, very relieved that this court case won't be going ahead against Associated Newspapers, because to have Meghan and her father against each other in the witness stand would be a cause célèbre which would be internationally sensational. The very last thing the royals want.
Well, the very last thing they want, but to be honest, I'd be watching, wouldn't you? Thank you, Richard, for joining me. Richard Fitzwilliams, thank you so much. It's lovely to talk to you again.
Pleasure.
He's a royal commentator. Right, you're watching me, Nana Akua, on GB News. There's more to come in the next hour. Good afternoon. If you just joined me, where have you been? You've missed some juicy gossip. I'm Nana Akua. For this hour, me and my panel will be taking on some of the big topics hitting the headlines. It's just gone 5 o'clock, and in this hour, this show, as ever, is all about opinion. It's mine, it's theirs, and it's yours. We'll be debating, discussing, and at times we will disagree, but no one will be cancelled. Joining me today is Conservative commentator Calvin Robinson and comedian Leo Kearse. Now, on the way, my difficult conversation, and this week it's focused on drink spiking. With almost 200 incidents reported to the police forces across the UK throughout September and October, I'm going to be meeting a woman who's created an easy-to-use drug detection strip for people to take out with them. She'll also be joined by her daughter, who has first-hand experience of her drink being spiked. And our Great British Debate this hour. The Community Secretary, Michael Gove, is set to announce plans to introduce more elected mayors or American-style governors across England. It's part of the Conservatives' plans to level up the country and offer more devolution away from Westminster. So I'm asking, does devolution work? And, of course, we want to hear from you. Email gbviews@gbnews.uk, or why not tweet me @gbnews. But first, let's get your latest news update.
Hello, I'm Karen Roberts. This is your news just after 5 o'clock. Health leaders are welcoming a move to suspend GPs' targets in order to focus on the vaccination programme. However, they've been warned the service still remains under significant pressure. NHS England has told doctors that routine health checks for the over 75s and new patients may be deferred to prioritise booster jabs. The aim is to suspend paperwork and to ease the workload. But the British Medical Association says individual practices can decide when they switch to delivering COVID jabs. A further 75 cases of the Omicron variant have been confirmed in England. This brings the total number of confirmed cases to 104 in England and 135 across the whole of the United Kingdom. There's only one confirmed case so far in Wales and none in Northern Ireland. Scotland has reported 30 cases. The parents of a teenager accused of killing 4 students in Michigan have pleaded not guilty to 4 counts of involuntary manslaughter. A judge imposed a combined $1 million bail for James and Jennifer Crumbly, hours after police said they had been caught hiding in Detroit. The couple's lawyer has denied they were on the run, but said they had left town for their own safety. Charges were brought against the parents, accusing them of failing to intervene in their son's alleged involvement in the shooting at Oxford High School in Michigan. Their son, Ethan Crumbly, has been charged with murder and weapons charges. The Metropolitan Police say they are considering complaints about alleged Christmas parties at Number 10 last year. Labour backbenchers have written to Scotland Yard asking officers to investigate reports that 2 were held when such gatherings were banned. The Met said that it did not routinely investigate retrospective breaches of the COVID regulations, but it would consider the complaint. Boris Johnson hasn't denied the events took place, but said no rules were broken. Ireland is set to shut nightclubs and limit household gatherings due to fears about the spread of COVID-19 over Christmas. The tougher regulations will come into force from Tuesday and remain in place until January the 9th. The new measures include a maximum 50% capacity at entertainment, community and sporting events, which the hospitality industry has described as a hammer blow. Meanwhile, visits to private homes should be limited to 4 households, although Deputy Prime Minister Leo Varadkar said this won't be strictly enforced.
I want to be very clear that this is advice, it is guidance, it is not statutory. There will be no Gardaí calling to people's homes to see how many are inside, and the government will not be telling you what you can or cannot do in your own home.
Nearly 300 military personnel are being drafted in to assist thousands of homes that are still without power 8 days after Storm Arwen hit the UK. As of early Friday evening, just over 9,000 homes were still cut off. Freezing temperatures are expected in parts of the north of England and Scotland, as well as sleet and rain over the next 24 hours. One person has died and 41 have been injured after a volcano in Indonesia erupted, local authorities have confirmed. Dramatic footage shows the Semeru volcano on Java Island blanketing the area with clouds of smoke and ash, forcing residents to flee. Eileen Ash, the oldest ever Test cricketer, has died at the age of 110. The right-arm bowler made 7 appearances for England before and after the Second World War and retired in 1949. As well as cricket, she was seconded to MI6 during the war and played golf until she was 98 years old. And footballers and fans across the country have paid tribute to Arthur Labinjo Hughes during today's fixtures. The 6-year-old was killed after suffering abuse at the hands of his father and stepmother, who were jailed yesterday. His favourite club, Birmingham City, wore "Arthur, we love you" T-shirts and carried a banner bearing his picture before their match against Millwall. At the London Stadium, a minute's silence was held in the 6th minute of the game during the clash between West Ham and Chelsea. Other clubs have also taken part. I'll bring you the latest headlines in half an hour's time. Until then, it's back to Nana Akua.
So if you just join me, let's start this hour with my difficult conversation. So almost 200 drink spiking incidents have been reported to police forces across the UK. That's throughout September and October. And some groups are now boycotting nightclubs, calling on businesses and the police to tackle the issue. So one woman was inspired to take things into her own hands. After hearing how many spiking cases there's been, her daughter was also, unfortunately, the victim of drink spiking a few weeks ago. Katie Burrington, founder of Check Your Drinks, joins me in the studio now with her daughter Jessica. So welcome. Thank you so much for joining me. It's lovely to talk to you both. Thank you so much. Well, you know, first of all, I've got to say, it is incredible that this has become a huge thing, because I think 200 is a smaller number than the reality of it. I want to start with you, Jessica, and if you could tell me, so what happened? What was...
So I was at a friend of a friend's birthday party, and I didn't know everyone there, but I was just having a few drinks, a couple glasses of wine, and then all of a sudden, when I got in the Uber on the way home, I just completely lost control of my legs, my arms, everything went numb. I was going in and out of consciousness, and the whole night was just a bit of a blur, really, and I got into my friend's house, and I was violently being sick for 2.5 hours, going in and out of consciousness. I couldn't feel anything. And my friend thought something was up. She's like, this can't just be alcohol, because I couldn't even speak to her. So she tested my vomit with my mum's drink spike test, and it tested positive for ketamine. So she ended up calling an ambulance, and the next thing you know, I was in hospital.
See, now this is the thing. So you were at a party with friends in what would be a safe space, so you weren't even out at a bar or a club?
No, I wasn't at a bar.
So you're actually at somebody's house?
At somebody's house, yeah. But I didn't know everyone there. There were about 40 people there. The majority was boys. But yeah, no, you'd think at a house party you would feel safe, but I reckon you just can't really feel safe anywhere.
Now, this is horrendous. And so you went to hospital. And what was the kind of treatment that they gave for you there?
So they were doing blood tests, and I got put on a drip in the ambulance because I was very dehydrated, because I've been throwing up for about 5 hours straight. And then we had to go in the waiting room for about an hour and a half, and we just had to wait for the blood test to come back in, see if I was okay to go home. It was just a lot of waiting.
And what was going through your mind?
I just couldn't believe it happened. I still was really, traumatised, and I just didn't really register what was going on, but yeah.
And were you aware of what had happened, though?
Yes, I was aware of what happened. I thought I must have been spiked, because I've never felt anything like it. It was an alien feeling, and I just thought I must have been spiked. Yeah.
That's horrendous. And just, is this by coincidence that you happen to have been a company that deals with these drink spiking strips, or was it as a result of?
This is why it's so incongruous that the daughter of the mother who's actually created a drink spike test gets a phone call at 5 in the morning from Jess saying, "Mum, I'm in A&E, come and get me, I think I've been spiked." It's just like, what? It was, really, really shocking. So the whole thing is completely ironic. But good on her friend for testing Jess's vomit with the drink spike test.
Yes, I mean,
that made the friend ring up the ambulance.
So you can still do it afterwards?
Well, it was I think ketamine it's found in a liquid, so it was present in the vomit, and the test pack changed colour. And actually, when I spoke to the doctor at A&E and I was going through how Jess felt, he said, "Yeah, that sounds like ketamine." And he said, "I've had a number of cases of youngsters coming in with exactly the same sort of symptoms." He said there's a lot of it going around, which is just shocking.
I don't understand why anyone would want to do that to somebody else.
It's really bizarre. So I think the main reasons are sinister, be it rape, mugging, but also I think it's people just doing it for, let's see what happens. Let's do it for a bit of a laugh and see what the reaction is, which is just crazy. It's horrible.
It is crazy. And the awful thing is you were in a space that you would think would be safe.
Yeah.
But even that, you have to keep your eye on it. Now, you set up this business. How long ago did you set it up, and why did you set it up?
So I set it up 7 years ago. My husband practices criminal law, and he came back telling me about a number of cases where women had professed to have had their drink spiked. And I was thinking, Jessica's 11. What if there's nothing out there for her when she's out drinking in bars, clubs and nightclubs? So I know what I'm like, I'm very spontaneous. So I went, right, I'm going to sort this out. So I went down the journey of creating my own drink spike test, which was a long journey. It took at least 3 to 4 years to actually create, because there was a lot of chemistry involved. But so it started off with, because of what my husband was telling me, and then me thinking, I want Jess and my son to feel safe when they're out and about drinking. I just thought it was something that was needed. So I created it.
It's a great idea. So you've got it in front of you, the components of this drink strip. So what's the one in the centre is like a strip with the yellow one?
Yes, so you've got...
Shall I hold that up?
Yes, you hold that.
So you've got this sort of this thing, and it's got some the colours on it.
Yeah, so you've got the bottom one, the purpley coloured one, is to test for GHB.
Right.
And the one at the top tests for ketamine. So you can put a drop of drink onto both patches, and if either changes colour, it's got the drug in there.
Is it?
So, yeah, the yellow patch
Let me
would
just see if anyone in this studio is trying to kill me.
Hold on.
My God, what are they doing to me? no, thank you.
You're okay.
That would be a bit of a
You're
shocker,
okay.
actually, if it was. So what happens? You've got the yellow at the top, and then you've got a lighter colour underneath.
Yes, so the yellow would turn a very deep orange, and the mauve would turn a blue.
I see. Okay.
Yeah. So,
okay. And how quickly does that happen?
Almost instantly.
Oh, right, okay.
Which is great, because you can imagine, especially if teenagers are testing their drink, they're not going to be wanting to wait at least 3 minutes before they pick up their drink.
Just have another sip, then, oh my God.
Exactly. So my advice is, because I'm often asked, when should we use this drink spike test? So my advice would be, if you've left your drink unattended, you've gone to the toilets, you've gone to the dance floor, and it's a full drink, just test it. I mean, even if it's half a drink, test it just to be sure. If you're nervous about someone that's actually bought you a drink, test your drink. Or if your friend is acting really strange after a couple of drinks, test their drink. You have anything from 20 minutes to 2 hours where it could kick in. So if you've got a positive reaction, just say to your friends, get me somewhere safe. Or if you're on your own, God forbid, go to the barman and say, I've got a positive reaction, I need to get home, I need to get to a safe space, because then you won't know what's happening, you won't remember what's happening to you, and it could be trouble.
No, you were lucky because you were in a cab, but you weren't on your own.
I wasn't on my own, I was with my friend.
Yeah, with your friend.
Yeah.
And she was astute enough to think, oh, hang on, this is...
Yeah, this something isn't right.
Something not
I
right.
just wasn't acting normal, and it wasn't just I've drunk too much, it was I completely lost control of my body and couldn't feel anything, so, yeah.
And luckily, her friend, when she tested your vomit, thought, right, let's get the ambulance. This is something sinister here. We need to get help.
Where can people get these from?
So if you go online at checkyourdrink.co.uk, you can buy a pack of 5. There's 5 test strips in here. These are the kind of larger individual test strips. And,
right, these are quite big, aren't they?
Yeah, those are bigger. So they tend to be for bars, universities and clubs who want to give them out individually.
That's a good idea, isn't it? Because
give them out for free, make people feel safe.
Have you made lots of sort of partnerships with these different venues?
So, we're now getting... and it's great because it's only happened literally probably since mid-October because of all the press coverage where the change in attitude has been staggering. 7 years ago, no one wanted to know. It's like, we don't want to be associated with drink spiking. Now, it's a duty of care. This is something that we should give out to make people safe. So we're now getting universities, nightclubs and bars interested in buying this so they can give them out for free. And also, so people can come up to them and say, I think I've had my drink spiked, and they can test it. And either say yes or no.
Yeah. So what about if somebody's watching now and they've got a pub or a bar or a venue, how can they get in touch or find these? Where would they go? Is there a website?
Online, yes. So checkyourdrink.co.uk, and you can come onto the website with all my details and order as many as you feel.
Yeah.
But I had a great testimonial, actually, from a man who ran 3 bars in Warrington, and he got in touch and he said, I want to thank you so much, because a girl came up and she said, I think somebody spiked my drink. She'd drunk half of it. She pointed at the man that she thought had spiked it. They tested the drink with Sid and it changed colour, and so they detained the man, and she went to hospital. He just said thank you, because that's one bad person that's been detained because of Check Your Drink. So that was great to hear, actually.
Yeah, that's really good to see. And of course, it's good to see that you're well and that didn't sort of affect you too much, but you've been through it. Was there one thing that you learnt from that you would give advice to anybody, another young woman?
I mean, just check your drink wherever you go. I mean, test it if you can. I mean, even if you're at a house party with people you feel safe with, you can never be too careful.
Well, listen, it's been such a pleasure talking to you both.
Thank you.
Incredible. What you want to do now is set up a whole sort of training programme for the bars and venues as to how they should care for people if they have had their drinks spiked.
You're absolutely right. Yeah.
You do that next, because I can see that you're a woman with a mission.
Thank
you so much.
Nice to meet you.
Jessica, it's lovely to meet you.
Lovely to
Thank
meet
you so much. So, Katie and Jessica Burrington, interesting and a great discovery. You should really get your hands on it, especially with the New Year's Eve and Christmas celebrations coming up. It's probably a wise thing. Right, so after the break, it's time for the Great British Debate. I'm asking, does devolution work? Scotland and Wales already have their own powers to make decisions, but now part of England could have those too. Is set to announce plans to introduce more elected mayors or American-style governors. It's part of the Conservatives' plan to level up the country. We'll be talking about that next, but first, let's check out the weather.
It's time to remind ourselves there's always another winter. Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
Looking cold, windy and showery, with some heavy showers in places and snow over northern hills. Let's take a look at the details. There'll be plenty of showers rattling into southwest England this afternoon. Some will be heavy with a risk of hail. Feeling cold with blustery northwesterly winds. Far fewer showers for central, southern and southeast England, with plenty of sunshine to be had. Still cold though, especially due to the wind. We're back into showery conditions in Wales, with the air cold enough for a bit of snow over the mountains. Winds will be strongest around the coasts. Frequent showers will be driven into northwest England on a strong and cold northwesterly wind. Some of the showers will contain hail. Temperatures will reach just 5 or 6 Celsius at best. For northeast England, showers may well merge into more general rain and hill snow later this afternoon. Most of the snow will be above 300 metres, affecting higher Transpennine routes and, again, feeling cold. Pretty wet with rain and hill snow over southeast Scotland, but further west it should be drier with some bright or sunny spells. Temperatures between 3 and 5 Celsius. And a windy and cold afternoon across Northern Ireland, with lots of showers piling in. Again, some will be heavy with the risks of hail in places. Temperatures topping out at 6 Celsius. Remaining showery in many areas this evening, with some more persistent rain and hill snow for northern and eastern England, and that's how the weather is shaping up for the rest of the day.
Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
You're watching GB News live across the UK and the world on our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
We are here for you. Don't forget to join our YouTube community by clicking on that subscribe button.
And if you want the GB News app, you can click and catch up on programmes anytime.
We love to hear from you, so email us.
gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Thanks for being part of the GB News family.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else. I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
It's time for the Great British Debate this hour. I'm asking, does devolution work? Large areas of England could introduce powerful American-style governors or elected mayors under Michael Gove's plans to level up the country. London has had mayors since the year 2000, but a new generation of Conservative mayors, such as Andy Street in the West Midlands, has helped some in government warm to extending devolution. So would it be a welcome plan? I'm joined by the leader of the Yorkshire Party, Bob Buxton. Bob, welcome to the programme. Do you think this is a good idea?
Well, powerful devolution is certainly needed. We've seen that just this week and last with cancellation of transport schemes in Yorkshire, HS2, the new Bradford station. We've seen actually for several decades lower education funding in Yorkshire and transport funding across a whole range of different issues. We need powerful devolution. We'd actually support Scottish-style devolution with a regional parliament for Yorkshire to make the UK stronger and fairer.
Do you think it's made the UK stronger, though, with the whole Scottish devolution? To me, it looks like a sort of break up the union type scenario and also weakening the country. I mean, some people might argue that would be the outcome.
Well, the reason that Scotland voted no to independence was because they were promised Devo Max. So devolution held the union together. Now, there's no appetite for independence in Yorkshire or indeed in the north yet, and I hope that it doesn't come to that because I want to see the United Kingdom stay united, but with power fairly shared out. You're actually giving ammunition to those who would break apart the UK when you see an over-centralised government prioritising London again and again, all spending on Crossrail, HS2 is London-centric, and promising levelling up, but simply not doing levelling up.
It's interesting, though, because obviously London is the capital city, and if you go around most parts of the world, you'll find that the capital city often gets sort of preferential treatment and more funding, and it gets more, more of the economy and everything going towards it. But in reality, things are sort of equal out around the country, but each part of the country has a different sort of strength. So why do you think that this would be an effective way of sort of building and levelling up your part, or where you live in Yorkshire?
So first of all, the country is not even at all. There are primary schools in London which get 50% more per pupil per year than those in Yorkshire. As for transport, everyone knows this. Transport spending is certainly not equalled up. We'll all be paying taxes towards HS2. We won't all be getting any benefit from HS2. We'll all pay taxes towards Crossrail, but certainly won't all be getting benefits from Crossrail. Now, if we had a Yorkshire regional parliament, the amount of money to be spent per person in Yorkshire, of course, would be sorted out, and the people who are elected would then be making those decisions on the budget, and they'd be accountable for it. The last general election was about Brexit, about Jeremy Corbyn. But if you had a regional parliament for Yorkshire, it would be focused on Yorkshire. People have to stand on their record for Yorkshire, their local record. And that's what would make decisions better. People would have to be better with what they did for Yorkshire, or they'd lose their seats.
I hear what you're saying, but I mean, I know you're talking about cost per head and things like that, but to be fair, in parts of the southeast, what you'll pay in terms of cost of living are higher than in different areas around the UK. But I want to take you back to 2004, when the 78% of voters in the northeast said no to a regional assembly in a referendum. Does that not show that people in the north don't really want more politicians? Because that's ultimately what it will come down to.
So the referendum of 2004 actually proves my point perfectly. The people of the northeast were offered weak devolution. Devolution, which would have controlled just 2% of public spending. So people voted no to weak devolution. In Scotland and Wales, people voted yes to strong devolution. So what have the Tories given us? They've given us weak mayoral devolution. They've given us a single unitary authority for North Yorkshire. Nobody wants this, but it's soon going to happen. So actually the referendum proves my point. People want strong devolution and not weak devolution. As for the number of politicians, we've got a lot of politicians already that people don't know about, many of whom are unelected. So let's take West Yorkshire. The West Yorkshire Combined Authority. Fair enough, the mayor is democratically elected. Nobody else is. And they don't make decisions, they haven't got much power. It goes to the Commons, which of course is elected, and the Lords, which isn't. A regional parliament for Yorkshire would deal with decisions which only affected Yorkshire, just like the Scottish Parliament deals with decisions just for Scotland. So one democratic layer of government would replace 3 layers, only one of which is currently democratic. So it'd be a huge improvement. Things would happen more quickly, more democratically. You'd have more democratic accountability. If you didn't like people making decisions, you could get rid of them. You can't get rid of almost anybody on the West Yorkshire Combined Authority. You certainly can't get rid of anybody from the House of Lords.
Well, that's another story. What sort of powers, though, do you want to see then given to mayors and additional sort of politicians? Ultimately, that's what it will be in Yorkshire.
So, first of all, you don't want to concentrate too much power in one person. Hence, we support a parliamentary model, not a mayoral model. What powers do you want to see in the region? Well, similar to Scotland, full range of powers. Education, transport, housing, environment, you name it. There are, of course, some things which require national government. Foreign policy is, of course, something for national government. Apart from that, really, everything that affects Yorkshire or domestic policy, we'd like to see controlled by a regional parliament for Yorkshire. And what we see in Westminster is failure on national level. We see Yorkshire being ignored, and the North East and other regions as well. It isn't good enough. Labour have had chances, the Tories have had chances. It just doesn't work. A government based in Westminster will prioritise London over Yorkshire and indeed the rest of the North.
Well, listen, Bob, thank you so much for your thoughts. Let's hope it doesn't go the way of the NHS. Loads of managers and a lot of money spent at the top. Thank you for that. He's the leader of the Yorkshire Party. I'm also joined by the leader of Cumbria First, Councillor Jonathan Davies. Jonathan, are you in favour of elected mayors?
Not so much as directly elected mayors that we've seen in London and elsewhere. Unfortunately, as Bob quite rightly says there, the concentration of power is a risk. We've got the Westminster bubble that, quite frankly, doesn't have an idea about the regions, about what happens in the councils across the UK. Recently, Michael Gove was quoted as saying the SNP have taken power from the councils and broken devolution, I think was the word used. Yet here we've got the Westminster bubble pushing that same proposal to concentrate power in the hands of a few people rather than a grassroots up democracy system. And unfortunately, I'm quite worried about the concentration in the hands of a few, which ultimately the Conservatives will be hoping will benefit them to give them greater control across the UK. So it's not quite a devolution, it's a grab of power.
So I'm confused then. So are you in favour then of elected mayors? It sounds like you are in favour of it.
I'm in favour of change to the current system, but the concentration of power directly in the hands of 15, 20 people across England isn't a good thing. We need a lot more accountability. Our current system for elections, we need a proportional system so that, you know, you can vote for somebody at this moment in time and they take power based on the first past the post system. And that isn't a representative system. And we need a model in place so that when you cast a vote, your vote means something.
So you talking about sort of like elections? You're not talking about an actual mayor then? You're talking about the general...
Yeah, well, I mean, a mayor, at the end of the day, a mayor is elected. And the whole system of how we elect our representatives needs an overhaul. We need to be able to ensure that a representative for the people is elected for MPs, for councils, for a mayor. I personally hate the term mayor. It reminds me of things such as Trumpton, children's programmes from back in the 70s. So, yeah, the governor title is something that I do think is a lot more apt. However, the roles, the powers that are given, government need to talk to the communities, they need to talk to the regions, not just from the Westminster bubble lob these changes. Right now in Cumbria, we've got local government reorganisation taking place, and Westminster have put a system onto Cumbria that 95% of people in Cumbria have had absolutely zero say in. It's being led by a small group within the current councils and within Westminster that is going to wreck the system of local government in Cumbria. And exactly the same thing is happening with the mayoral debate right now, that there's been no engagement with the communities. Those that are going to have the impacts to live with for generations to come are the ones that need the final say on such changes. So Michael Gove pushing out his ideas and suggestions is all well and good, but ultimately it needs to be the people of England and Scotland and Wales and Northern Ireland that have the say on what Westminster is delivering into our communities.
OK, well, listen, Councillor Jonathan Davies, thank you so much for talking to us. He's the leader of putting Cumbria first. Interesting stuff. So what do you think, then? Should we have elected mayors around the country rather than the current system that we have, which doesn't really have many of them at all? After the break, we'll continue with the debate. The question I'm asking is, does devolution work? You'll hear my panel's thoughts, but first, let's get your latest news headlines.
Hello, I'm Karen Roberts. Here are the latest headlines. Health leaders are welcoming a move to suspend GPs' targets in order to focus on the vaccination programme. However, they've been warned the service still remains under significant pressure. NHS England has told doctors that routine health checks for the over 75s and new patients may be deferred to prioritise booster jabs. A further 75 cases of the Omicron variant have been confirmed in England. This brings the total number of confirmed cases to 104 in England and 135 across the whole of the United Kingdom. There's only one confirmed case so far in Wales and none in Northern Ireland. Scotland has reported 30 cases. The parents of a teenager accused of killing 4 students in Michigan have pleaded not guilty to 4 counts of involuntary manslaughter. A judge imposed a combined $1 million bail for James and Jennifer Crumbly hours after police said they had been caught hiding in Detroit. The couple's lawyer has denied they were on the run but said they had left town for their own safety. The Metropolitan Police say they are considering complaints about alleged Christmas parties at Number 10 last year. Labour backbenchers have written to Scotland Yard asking officers to investigate reports that 2 were held when such gatherings were banned. The Met said that it did not routinely investigate retrospective breaches of the COVID regulations, but it would consider the complaint. And footballers and fans across the country have paid tribute to Arthur Labinjo Hughes during today's fixtures. The 6-year-old was killed after suffering abuse at the hands of his father and stepmother, who were jailed yesterday. His club favourite, Birmingham City, wore Arthur We Love You T-shirts and carried a banner bearing his picture before their match against Millwall. At the London Stadium, a minute's silence was held in the 6th minute of the game during the clash between West Ham and Chelsea. Other clubs have also taken part. And that's your news for now.
You're watching GB News live across the UK and the world on our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
We are here for you. Don't forget to join our YouTube community by clicking on that subscribe button.
And if you want the GB News app, you can click and catch up on programmes anytime.
We love to hear from you, so email us.
gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Thanks for being part of the GB News family.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else. I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
Good afternoon. Back to the Great British Debate this hour. Large areas of England could elect powerful American-style governors or elected mayors under Michael Gove's plans to level up the country. Scotland and Wales already have devolved powers, so I'm asking, does devolution work? Now, you've heard what my guests think, so let's see what my panel have to say. Joining me, of course, is Leo and Calvin. So I'm going to start with you. Who went first last time?
I can't remember.
Mr. Kiss.
Go on then.
Devolution, yeah, I think devolution is a disaster and it should be avoided at all costs. It's been a disaster for Scotland. Basically what it does is it creates these sort of provincial governments that then attack the central government whilst demanding money from them. And they're not subject to the same scrutiny and oversight and efficiency, if we can describe the central government as any of those things. But you know, they're even worse than central government. So you can see the SNP have done a terrible job of managing Scotland, and yet they can still demand money from Westminster and try and place the blame on Westminster for you know any of their mistakes. So yeah, devolution is appalling. It just creates this layer, an extra layer of bureaucracy, more politician snouts in the trough. As if that's something society needs.
I love the way you said that. It sort of reminds me a bit of the sort of structure of the NHS, where you end up with a load of managers at the top who are taking quite a large amount of money, but not actually on the ground. Yet they're professed to represent everybody else, but you can't. They're just a block for you to get to the government that you could have got to before. But Calvin, what do you think?
Yeah, devolution doesn't work. So we're seeing in Scotland and Wales and Northern Ireland these devolved parliaments and assemblies. They just cause, as you say, more bureaucracy. You've got local governments saying we can't do it, blaming the central government. The central government saying no, that we've given them the responsibility. It's back and forth. But also, if you really want to devolve, you should go to the local level. So the power should be as close to the people it affects as possible. But there, even that's problematic because then we have more levels of politicians, as you alluded to, more bureaucracy in that way. What we should have is a central government. So get rid of the devolved parliaments in Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland because they don't work. It's causing more separatist agendas. Get one central government, but with a smaller government. So the government should be responsible for national security, protecting our freedoms, our privacy, our private property. That's it.
Well, because we don't want a Jackie Weaver scenario. You have no authority, Jackie Weaver. Because that's what I see. I mean, I've been to council meetings and it's sort of a load of people grabbing onto bits of power. And what worries me is that if we do this, then it's going to end up with actually you end up disseminating everything and you're not actually going to end up making any real decisions. And it's just going to be micro arguments within a bigger argument and nobody will get anywhere.
Well, what could happen? What could happen is we can end up with a third chamber because all of these local metropolitan mayors, well, they kind of joined together anyway already, with the Andes, the Street and the Burnham, etc., all across the country. And then we've got the House of Commons, we've got the House of Lords, and then we have this assembly of metropolitan mayors as well, all making the same decisions, all impacting our lives with very little accountability to us.
Yeah, and devolved parliaments become a talent trap. So, I mean, the UK government used to be full of Scots. We had Gordon Brown, we had Tony Blair, our greatest ever leader, and we're not, Robin.
That was a joke, right?
So many. I mean, I don't think you can argue with that length of time. And I lived through the 90s and the early noughties. They were glorious times. Everybody got on. It was
pretty much everything that's wrong in this country is because of Tony Blair.
No, I disagree.
Really?
Clearly a very
I've got to
successful
stop you
leader,
there,
a very
though, because you
talented
said
man. But now Scotland's become this parochial, inward-looking country because they've got their own parliament.
Yeah, because
so the talent doesn't come to London.
But you said he's great.
Devolution was under him.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I'm not saying that was a good idea.
Okay.
I mean,
what about the increase in immigration?
What about Iraq?
Increasing immigration was a good idea. Immigration was quite a good idea. I mean, it supercharged the UK economy.
Well, what about Iraq then? Defend that one.
Iraq, all politicians get embroiled in terrible wars.
Actually trying to defend that one?
Scandal?
He was taken in there by America. Like, we wanted to...
Poor him. I thought he was one of the greatest leaders of all time, but yet he was taken in.
He made some mistakes. He was in power for, 13 years? Obviously, people are going to make some mistakes.
Unlucky for some. 13's a long time.
Started culture wars. He came up with the idea that everyone has to go to university, and now we have the universities full of nonsensical courses about gender studies and things that don't give people any knowledge.
How terrible
don't get them jobs either.
How terrible Tony Blair is that he wanted people to be educated.
No, university isn't for everybody.
And also, wasn't he around for student loans as well? I mean, didn't they start under his reign as well? And now it's so expensive. Students coming out with £70,000 worth of debt.
Students should have to pay for their own education.
Don't forget. Well, in his era,
you should tax bus drivers to pay for gender studies degrees.
In his era, he didn't have to pay because then they had wonderful sort of bursaries and they had lots of provision for people to go. But now, unfortunately, doing it this way means there's a huge divide in the rich and poor, and the poor people can't afford it.
It absolutely makes sense for students to pay for their own education. Then they're going to think about it and do courses that are actually beneficial for society and are going to earn the money.
That isn't the case, though, is it? That isn't the case at all.
I think it is more the case. There's much. People are focusing on STEM courses, and I think it's wrong to tax bus drivers. It's wrong to tax bus drivers and cleaners to pay for somebody to do it.
I agree with that.
Well, let's get back to devolution anyway, because it's not been a great thing, has it? I mean, looking at some things, but then others would argue that we have come out of the EU and we've kind of taken back control, as it were. Those are our words, of course. So we have devolved, and yet we're defending, we're saying that devolution isn't a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think devolution on a national level can make sense. So, I mean, obviously, Westminster can rule the country. But devolution, it tears the country apart because you've just created these parochial provincial governments that attack the central government. And like Calvin says, you've got unclear responsibilities, there's unclear demarcations between them. So too much bureaucracy and people batting issues backwards and forwards.
Yeah, we want to keep the union together, surely. Yeah. And to do that, we have to have one central government, as small a government as possible.
Yeah.
Well, absolutely. Even everyone wants to have their own bit. There's Yorkshire now, Sunderland will want their bit, everyone wants a little bit now. How we could go really small on this, and in the end, my little town where I live will have their own thing going on too. Yeah. I suppose that is the mayor, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's what that is. Yeah, perhaps we're going a little bit too far on this. Well, let's see what you've been saying on this. I'm asking, does devolution work? Tom says, too much devolution will result in nothing ever getting done. So true, so true. Andrew says, it will lead to the breakup of our precious union. Break up the union. We should restore power to Westminster, to the people who are actually elected to run the country. Elliot says handling everything at the lowest possible level should, in theory, be the best system. In practice, it depends on the competence of those in charge of carrying out whatever needs doing. Craig says, great for the politicians and their families, more taxpayers' money going down into their pockets. Barbara mentions this. She said, devolution never worked. Just add up all the total administrative costs for the 3 assemblies and that could be spent on practical work for all communities. Gordon has said this, you cannot devolve powers to bodies that are politically opposed to the nationally elected government. Ray puts this out. He says, my observation is that devolution creates more problems than it resolves.
They're all right. As usual, the GBNews viewers are right.
It does, doesn't it? More division, more secularisation, more different segments of the country asking for their own bit, arguing against central government. Where will we get?
And more cost for the taxpayer.
Who's going to pay these people?
Well, we are. That's the problem, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
When actually the money could be spent better in the actual thing that they're discussing. So, for example, in the NHS, that's a good one.
Or it could not be spent. How about that? A government that doesn't spend so much money and lets us keep our own money. Because I think I know how to spend my money better than the government knows how to spend my money.
That's the soundest thing you've ever said.
It is, actually, but I can't sort of stop hearing the thing about Tony Blair, though, in my head.
Counteracts it,
you've
doesn't
sort
it?
of... Yeah, sorry, unfortunately not.
Leader.
Right, now it's time for something a little bit different. It's my quick-fire quiz. 5 questions with my panellists going head-to-head. They've each got a buzzer with a unique sound. Very good. So when I ask them questions, they can buzz in with their answers. So on to our first question. Right, what mode of transport could be introduced by 2025? Is it A, flying cars? Is it B, personal submarines? Or is it... No, you must let me finish. I've started, so I'll finish. Is it C, HS2? Yes, Leo.
Is it flying cars?
Is it flying cars?
I want it to be flying cars.
Is it flying cars? The answer is flying cars. Very good. Yeah. It's 1-0. Right, yes,
and
it is.
also
Actually.
hoverboards. Where are the hoverboards?
I'd love that. That would
Yeah.
be. No, I think they've got those actually. It's like those electric. Yeah. Those electric scooters, aren't they? The really high one.
Oh, yeah, that's
one.
It's on wheels.
It's true, it's true. OK, so the answer, yes, flying cars. Getting a lift in a taxi could take a whole new meaning. That is, a state-of-the-art flying machine takes to the skies in 2025. Doesn't really look like a car, does it?
No, that looks like
a plane.
Somebody's going to die in it.
Well, I think, unfortunately, that looks like something that, yeah, exactly as you said. The AT is the 5-seater hybrid electric aircraft that can perform vertical takeoffs and landings and travel up to 250 miles an hour. Well, just as exactly what you said, Leo. Somebody's going to die in that.
Yeah. Good way to avoid traffic, though, isn't it? If you just take off vertically and get where you're going.
Yeah.
Will there be roads in the sky? No. Unfortunately, I think it's a good way to have a very...
Will there be speed cameras?
Exactly. It's a good way to have a very big accident. Right, would you get a lift in a flying car? Would you, Leo?
Oh, yeah, 100%. I could get up to Glasgow in like half an hour.
Why would you want to do that?
Because to see the devolved parliament? I don't know.
Would you, Calvin, get a
Yeah,
flight?
why not? I'd give it a try,
Yeah.
I'm sick of being stuck in traffic everywhere I go these days. We need something. We need a solution.
But what if everyone's got one? Everyone's in, then we all go, then it'll end up with a traffic jam in the sky.
What's the other solution? There are too many cars.
There's more space in the sky than there is on the road.
It depends if everything that's on the roads goes into the sky. Right, next question, question 2. Which Brit has become a popular character in this season's pantomimes? Is it... No, it's an open question, this one. I think I've given it away if you read the audio.
Yeah, I read it.
What's thinking? Go on then,
Boris Johnson.
Very good. Look, stop putting the answers in the auto cue. Who's doing that? Why have you done that? They're going to read it. Right. Yes, the answer is Boris Johnson. He's been recreated on stage in Aladdin, in the panto.
He is a bit of a pantomime.
Look at him. That's how it looks.
Nothing like him.
No, it doesn't.
Far too well groomed.
It's got a lot more hair. The Prime Minister, portrayed as the Emperor, has clown shoes, as you can see. So should we make fun of real people in panto like this, like Boris?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's fine to make fun of public figures, political figures. I mean, he's used to it. That's part of the fun of being a head of state. You get open yourself. Oh, no, he's not technically head of state, but you open yourself up for some good-hearted mockery.
As long as it's in good humour and it's not cruel, absolutely. And it should be balanced. We should attack the left and the right, not just the right constantly, because that gets boring, if anything.
It's true, it's true. Right, next question. True or false? Lidl has released its own brand of Christmas clothing. Leo?
True.
It's true. Is it true or false? It's true. Very good. Yes, it turns out it is.
Well done.
Yes, the supermarket chain scored a surprise hit this festive season with its own brand clothing line.
Oh, look at that.
It's even put a brand in it, though. You don't want to wear it and then it says Lidl in the middle.
You're walking advertisement, aren't you?
Yeah, but you wouldn't wear that, though.
I love the stuff that Lidl sells. Like that middle aisle in Lidl with jet skis and like solar-powered leaf blowers and massage chairs with an arc welding unit attached. It's amazing.
Did Alex come up with this question? Who came up?
I think it must have been Alex. What's your favourite piece of clothing then this Christmas? Must be that jumper, Calvin.
I've got a different one, actually. The House of Lords one I prefer, which I'll have on Dan Wootton's show on Tuesday. But yeah, I love a Christmas jumper.
I just noticed that. What is it?
So this is the House of Commons one from last year.
I thought so.
Every year they have a different Christmas jumper.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Oh, do they
How
give
do you
that?
get it?
Do they give it
It's on
free?
the House of Parliament website.
Oh, you buy it. They've got
They give it away, man. They should give that away. No, I'm joking. What about you?
Christmas clothes. I don't really. I mean, I wear a paper hat from a paper thing from a cracker, the hat. But that's it. That's the extent of my Christmas clothing. I just wear normal clothes.
Leo's wardrobe is quite restricted, let's be honest. You've got 2 T-shirts that you have in autumn.
Well, no, I have a Christmas dress. I have a Christmas dress that I wear all the time.
Is that the one you were going to wear?
No, that's a different one. But that Christmas dress, the reason why I wear it is because if I eat too much, then I sort of can't breathe, so I know when to stop eating.
Right.
It's very, very clever. It's true, it's what I do. Chancellor, right, next question. Chancellor Rishi Sunak is considering a tax cut before the next general election, but to the closest percent, how much is he planning to cut income tax by? Closest answer, yes, Calvin.
Not enough. He had the gall to come out in the media this week and say, I'm a low-tax Conservative. How dare he? He's the first person to raise tax in a long time, and has raised it by more than anyone else in a long, long time.
Yeah.
The audacity of the man.
Yeah, I mean, it's Calvin's absolutely right. He should get the point for this because taxes, and we're seeing this across all Western countries, the amount of GDP that's spent by the public sector is just going up and up and up and up. The governments are getting bigger and more bloated and sucking up all the wealth and resources, and they need to just give us some money back in our own pockets to spend ourselves.
Let us keep more of the money we earn.
Well, this is all very well and very generous that you gave Calvin the point, but you haven't answered the question, either of you.
All right.
So to the nearest percent, how much then?
1%.
1%.
I'll say 2%.
You've actually got it spot on, Leo. It's 2%. Yes. Absolutely. Rishi Sunak is drawing up plans to cut income tax by 2% in the pound before the next general election. The Chancellor is considering a raft of tax-cutting measures, but the income tax cut is currently the preferred option.
Can we see through this, by the way? Can we see that he's raising taxes now all the time he's in office, and just before the next election he's going to cut it? I hope people see through that nonsense.
Yeah, it's like when supermarkets say, oh, this bottle of wine is like £5 reduced from £8. They just put it up to £8 for a week.
Well, they all do
It's
that.
the Black Friday scam,
not just
isn't
the supermarkets, but all the different political parties do that. They say, they'll literally give you a bad run for one. Just before the election, everything sort of slightly changes.
Yeah. Do not fall.
They're all doing it. Yeah. They all do it. Right. Your last question. What have scientists discovered they can do this week? Is it A, teach dogs basic English? Please don't buzz in until I've finished. B, edit... No, I said, please don't buzz in, you're going to lose the point now. Edit genes to choose the sex of animals. Or C, create glow-in-the-dark animals. It has to be Leo, because Calvin's done that.
I've forgotten the answer.
We'll just say a letter.
Is it create glow-in-the-dark animals?
Is it create glow-in-the-dark?
They can do that. They can do that.
No, it's the wrong answer.
All right.
Changing sex.
You got it right. Yes, you said it's B, edit the genes to change sex. Absolutely.
Does that mean they're going to change the chromosomes of animals?
Well, edit the sex, I'm not sure.
So maybe that people can eventually change sex?
Well, but there'll still be X and Y chromosomes, so it won't make a difference to which... There's not going to be an extra one that's like X, Y,
no, but
G.
can they not change from XX to XY? Is that what they're saying?
But you'd have to do it before the animal is born. I'm guessing this is a in vitro process.
I haven't got a clue. This has gone straight over my head.
Maybe it's mRNA or something, who knows?
Right.
Neither of you know the answer, so what? Here we go. This is your question. I mean, do you think people would like to choose the sex of their child?
They would like to, but it's immoral, it's wrong.
Would you choose the sex of your child, Leo?
No, I wouldn't. I think it should be left to nature. And I mean, obviously, in China and places like that, they'd like to do it. But I mean, it's horrific what happens there with... and it's left them with a generation because girls are seen as unwanted. So some of them are killed. There's infanticide. And also, you've got a generation of too many men and not enough women.
That's a bit... What about you?
Yeah, I think it's disgusting, it's immoral, it's evil. We should not be allowed to choose anything about our babies. It should be left to God, it should be left to nature, as Leo said, and we should love them regardless.
What if you get 10 kids, Calvin, and 9 of them are all boys?
Then that's your lot.
And the 10th one's you would like a girl.
Neither sex is better than the other.
Yeah.
Well, no, but just to have a bit of variety.
It's very progressive, Calvin.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're impressed.
I have my moments.
So you wouldn't... Well, me personally, I don't mind. I mean, look, I've got a boy and a girl, so I'm OK with that.
Yeah. But where does it stop? If you can choose the gender, you can choose their eye colour. If you choose their eye colour, you can choose their strength. And people with more money to pay for these services can actually have stronger, healthier babies.
There are benefits.
And that's how we have eugenics, and it's dangerous.
Well, you say that, but there are some benefits as well. So, for example, if somebody has an illness that is genetic, you could take out that genetic abnormality and carry on. You see, so there's one side of it, but the other side of the argument enables... Well, but it enables...
So right now, in this country, you're allowed to abort a child if they have a cleft palate or if they have Down syndrome up until birth. So the day before they're supposed to be born, if your child is going to have a disability, you can have it erased, you can have it killed. I think that's immoral.
Well, I mean, look, but the argument
this technology allows people to edit the genes, so you know your child won't be born with. But
the child will still be born.
Looking at these children as wrong or defunct.
Well, it's not. No. But if somebody's got an illness that could be quite, quite debilitating in life, and you could take that out.
So this example of Down syndrome, for example, many people who are born with Down syndrome live full, happy lives.
Yes, I'm sure.
And contribute to society. There's no.
Well, I'm sure that is. But
some people say actually, no, they can't live a full life.
No, that's not the point. It's an illness, isn't it, ultimately? So if you can edit out something that would make somebody have a pretty tough life. I mean, if you have Down syndrome, you really have to rely on the mother and father around to give you the support that you need and all the support systems that are there. In some countries, in some places, you might not have that. But if you could edit that out so that people don't need to suffer that in that way.
It's suffering. I don't agree. I think it's wrong.
Yeah. Well,
I mean, would you rather have Down syndrome?
If that's my cards that I was dealt, absolutely.
I'd rather.
No, well, let's move on. Let's move on because the show's ending. We've got not much time. So on today's show, I've been asking, should we sacrifice jobs so we can reach net zero? According to our Twitter poll, 93% of you say no, we shouldn't. You're absolutely spot on. Thank you so much for all your thoughts, and a big thank you to my panellists, Calvin Robinson and also Leo Curse, for joining me today. Thank you so much, guys.
You're welcome.
And thank you to you for your company. I will be back tomorrow, same time, same place, 4 till 6. Make sure you join me. Enjoy. I'll see you tomorrow.
It's time to remind ourselves there's always another winter. Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
It's looking cold, windy and showery with some heavy showers in places and snow over northern hills. Let's take a look at the details. There'll be plenty of showers rattling into southwest England this afternoon. Some will be heavy with a risk of hail. Feeling cold